Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for another one of our bi-weekly press conferences where we take this opportunity to update the community on the things that are going on both within LMPD and our community at large and answer some of your questions as you are the medium to be able to get information to people. So thank you all for being here. First, we'll start off with kind of an overview of where crime stands right now, particularly some of those high-profile crimes. Homicides are still trending down, as well as non-fatal shootings, both in the 30% range. Our carjackings are down, as well as our car thefts. I do want to point out that last week we did make 4 homicide arrests from homicides that occurred in 2025, so earlier this year. And that was in 3 separate homicides where we arrested 4 separate individuals. So the homicide of Carl Jackson on 7/18, we made an arrest. Homicide arrested Sean Grady and charged him with the homicide of Jacree Cross. That one occurred in California Park back in February, on February 2nd. And then Jamie Shelby was arrested over in Jeffersonville, Indiana, with the help of the U.S. Marshals Task Force, and that was for the homicide of Latasha White in May. So a shout out to those homicide detectives who are working their tails off and putting good cases on people and making sure that we do our best to bring justice to victims out here. These are collaborative efforts. As we went on over last week, this isn't just coming from one detective or one unit. This occurs because of a collaboration of many units from patrol, specialty units, technology, and so very proud of the work that they're doing in those units. Some of the things that have come up recently, obviously there's a lot of focus on juvenile crime, and for good reason. Anytime we have kids involved in crime, particularly violent crime, it's concerning for us as a community. And so I want to give some perspective on where we actually stand when it comes to homicides involving juveniles and non-fatal shootings involving juveniles. So as I said, any crime involving a juvenile, a person under 18, is concerning, and it is cause for concern for our community. But I also want to put in perspective that the progress that we've made in homicides overall is also paying in those homicides involving juveniles. So we're actually down year to date right now, just one homicide year to date difference between this time last year, which, 10 is too many to have 10 juvenile victims of homicides, but that's fewer than the 11 that we had last year. And when you look across to non-fatal shootings, the trend is also the same, that the improvements that we've seen in overall non-fatal shootings, we've also seen in juvenile-related shootings. 44 last year compared to 33 at this time this year. So, that's between those two stats, that's 12 fewer juveniles that are involved in those type of violent crimes or victims of those type of violent crimes. But I think you all know last week we had a juvenile victim of a homicide. He was also involved in a shooting before that as the suspect. So, this isn't just a situation where we're talking about juvenile victims. These are also juvenile suspects, and that's just as harmful to the community and to these individual kids who are losing their futures over this type of stuff. And so when I talk about accountability for parents, I'm talking about accountability in the entire system. Obviously, something is broken. It's not, parents need to take responsibility and know what their kids are involved in. But we have to evaluate what we're doing inside LMP to make sure that we're getting these kids off the street that need to be off the street, because unfortunately, sometimes the safest place for them and for the community is to have them incarcerated. Unfortunately, we do have a situation where the only time a kid is going to get structure, is going to get feedback that is productive for them, is going to get the support that they need to get out of that life to be saved, is within the criminal justice system. And that's a sad state of affairs when we're saying that. But that is the facts that we're dealing with. And so we need to evaluate the entire system, not just the criminal justice system, but what we're doing as communities in order to combat this type of thing. So I'm sure we'll continue to have this conversation about juvenile crime, and I look forward to some of the solutions that we can come up with in order to deal with this and solve that problem before it becomes a criminal justice system issue. One of the things I want to point out is one of the initiatives that has been put forward by one of our officers. So Charles Ina is now a sergeant, but when he was an officer, he came up with this idea to have a thing called convos and cuts, and he developed it on his own and ran it up the chain of command and got permission, and it's something that's really starting to take off. And I want to introduce Sergeant Ina, who's a sergeant in the 4th Division, to come on up and give us a few minutes explaining what this program is about and the things that he's doing in the community to build those relationships. Sergeant Ina.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Charles Ina. I am a patrol sergeant in the 4th Division. And like Chief said, we started this initiative roughly a few years ago because ultimately we wanted to create a space where we could engage with the community in the community. And the initiative is called Convos and Cuts. And as the name suggests, what we do is simply meet in barbershops around the city and have conversations with members of the community. And our initiative has a 3-pronged approach. We want to inform, we want to invite, and we also want to implement. We want to interact with the community in a non-enforcement capacity. Typically, whenever the police interacts with the community, something wrong has happened, right? But Combos and Cuts is just another initiative from LMPD that provides the community with an opportunity to get to know who their officers are and get to know who their officers are and have a conversation with those officers. Secondly, we also want to inform. We place a lot of emphasis on educating the community about what we do and why we do it. What we've realized as a result of having these conversations is that some of the distrust between the community and the police is a result of being misinformed. So we place a lot of emphasis on educating the community. We also want to be informed. We want the community to let us know what concerns and what issues they have in their neighborhood and what concerns and issues they have with their police department. And lastly, we want to implement. While everything starts with a conversation or a discussion, we want to move from that to solutions. So whatever information or suggestions or even pushback the community gives us, we want to heed those concerns so that we can improve our department, but also address the concerns of our community members. One thing that is notable that has come as a result of these conversations is parents have expressed the desire to have a list of resources, whether they be nonprofits, organizations, or programs that they could defer to help them assist in their endeavors to parent. So again, these conversations are robust and they are helping us to create ideas about how we can deal with the juvenile issue and how we can continue to bridge that gap between the police and the community. So again, everyone is welcome. Please come out. We have an event tomorrow night. This will be in the south end of Louisville at 7296 Manslick Road at the Boys to Men Barbershop. Please come out and have a conversation with us. Thank you.
So apparently I need to go to the Charles Ina School of Public Speaking because he does an outstanding job. We'll make sure that he gets his beard trimmed up tomorrow at the barbershop too. But, one of the things that he talked about was the ideas that come out of that. And one of the things that we continually get feedback on from parents is that there are parents that are desperate for help. While it is very easy to sit up here and criticize parents because there are a lot of parents that facilitate the bad lives that their kids have, and they know about the things that their kids are involved in, and they're not ashamed to allow their kids to continue to be involved in or prevent them from getting out of that life. There are many more parents who are often at their wits' end about what to do with their kids. And they ask us all the time, and you talk to officers, and that's one of the most helpless feelings that officers have often is when they're being asked by a parent, what can I do? We can't lock up your kid, and we don't want to lock up your kid, but we need to be able to find resources in the community to assist those parents in helping them deal with their kids that they are asking for help with. And so that's one of the things that has been a topic of conversation several times at the Convos and Cuts conversations that we have. So great job by Ina. That's something that he created organically. Nobody told him to, nobody asked him to, and those are the type of programs we have out here that officers are doing a lot of this stuff on their own and never ask for, never seek, never get publicity about. But this is the type of good work that goes on behind the scenes. And so I want to make sure that we bring attention to some of the good work that these officers are doing. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
You mentioned the juvenile crime and with officers being asked like what can parents asking them what can you do. How hard is having the conversation and making it a reality for them, having to tell them that the criminal justice system is the only option if their kid is that far gone?
So the question was, how difficult is it when a kid is that far gone that criminal justice system is their only option? Well, so that is a very difficult conversation. I don't want to see any child enter the criminal justice system. We know that what that means for their future and the likelihood of being involved in the criminal justice system for the rest of their life once they enter that system. And so, however, we also know that on the other end, that it, like I said before, that is unfortunately sometimes the only place where a kid can get structure and get out of that life. And it might be the safest place for them because they might be the next victim of a violent crime. So it's extremely depressing. You know, I remember walking into some of these houses with kids, and we look at these kids, you know, 5, 8, 12 years old, and officers are like, they're heartbroken. The kid doesn't have a chance. But we also know that there's going to be a moment where that same kid, the community is going to look at them very differently. They're going to be 15, they're going to be 16 years old, and a switch will flip like that, and we're going to call them the problem. And they never really had a chance. And this country does not lack for opportunity. It does not. We have amazing opportunity in the United States. The problem is that so many people, by the conditions that they live in, that have been created over the years, never get exposed to that opportunity, or they don't have the ability to have a second chance. I think everybody in this room at some point has messed up really badly, and we've all had the good fortune of having a family, having friends, having neighbors who took us under their wing, who gave us opportunities, who got us out of situations that other people don't have the opportunity to get out of. And we need to do a better job as a society, as a community, of making sure that people can survive bad decisions. A bad decision at 15 shouldn't cost you your life. But we also have to face the realities that it often does, and there have to be consequences for that. So we can't take a single-sided approach to dealing with this problem. It has to be it has to be there has to be additional resources to be able to deal with this problem, as opposed to taking from one to focus on the other. We need to do all of the above and add to it.
Chief, the Mitchell Jackson case, I have 2 indictments, and I know that whenever...
Sorry, which case?
Mitchell Jackson.
Which
There's
one?
2 indictments.
Oh, yes, the one from 18th and Ollie?
Yes.
Yes.
I know whenever that first happened, there was like a little bit of skepticism how it happened. Can you give us a little insight into that case? Do you have any information of what kind of led to those arrests or indictments?
So I don't have specific information on what led to that arrest. I'll see if we can follow up and get some more information on you for you to be able to talk about that a little more.
And I know that there was a scary situation, obviously, Monday with the water company shouting at a protester. I guess, can you just kind of talk to that situation and just how dangerous it was, and I guess just from a police perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you've seen, you know, over the course of the past few months is that we've had a lot of protests in Louisville that have had no problems. While there's been illegal behavior, because understand that blocking the street, regardless, is illegal. Even the ACLU has said that it's illegal. The Supreme Court says it's illegal. That is not protected by the First Amendment. But we've tried to give people leeway to be able to express their First Amendment opinions. The moment that you become a criminal and start confronting people, start creating a danger for yourself or others, we have to intervene on that, and we can't let that happen. I'm all about civil disobedience. There is a value to civil disobedience. If you want to get locked up to make a statement, great, we will oblige all day long. Do not create a danger for others. Do not damage property. And we can remain respectful on that. So that's kind of where I stand on that. Don't do illegal stuff, and you don't have to worry about going to jail. We will protect your rights to be able to express, you know, your grievances with the government, and we will protect that, and we want you to be able to celebrate that. Don't put people in danger.
If you're a driver in that situation, what do you suggest if you are finding yourself?
Let me give some. We can come back. I know there's some other hands that were going up.
What do you think? What do you think about the sentence that was given to Brett Hankinson?
So the question was, what do I think about the sentence that was given to Brett Hankison? That was the decision of the court, and we're going to respect that decision. I can agree or disagree. I think we are at a time where we need to be careful about how we consider decisions of the judicial system and judges in particular. I don't want to undermine the process either way. And I can agree or disagree with the judge's sentencing, while at the same time respecting that that's the decision the judge made. I know we had some kind of flip-flopping of administrations from the Department of Justice and what they were pushing for. We don't control that. What we control is the fact that Bert Hankison doesn't work here anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to learn from everything that has happened in the past, understanding the pain that it caused, both to the community, to Breonna Taylor's family, and to this department. There are a lot of officers that have been negatively impacted by those incidents as well. And so we want to make sure that we learn from all of that, and we are better for it as an agency and as a city. So, yes, sir.
Yesterday, WDRB reported that Blake Cooper resigned with termination over a drinking incident, over, I guess, drinking violations, and that Bryson Bell was suspected of strip searches, or an improper strip search. What's your message to the community, I guess, on those, and do you have any further comments on those cases?
So the question was about former Officer Cooper, who resigned in lieu of termination after he had been drinking or had alcohol in his system on duty, and Officer Bell, who was suspended for an improper search. I think what the message to the community is that there's accountability, right? Those officers both messed up, and those officers received very stiff punishments. Officer Bell messed up trying to do police work and messed up. He was suspended. He got 3 weeks without pay. And his major made sure that he understood the parameters of the law and the Constitution, and I think he is a better officer, more well-educated officer for it right now. He's out there trying to keep people safe right now as we speak. And then with Officer Cooper, former Officer Cooper, I think people get confused when officers quit in lieu of termination as if they somehow escaped punishment, but he didn't. He is no longer a police officer. Like, that was the goal by terminating him. And so he quit in lieu of termination, which is his choice. And in doing so, he also forfeits his right to appeal that decision. So I think it saves all of us a lot of time and a lot of money. He knew it was the right decision to quit, and we don't have to go through an appeals process. He will never come back to LMPD because of it. So I think what we did was we did the right thing, made the right decisions, and the public can look at those situations as examples of us being transparent and holding officers accountable when they mess up. So,
in cases where somebody quits in lieu of termination, do you reach out to KLEC for potential decertification?
So the question was about KLEC, the Kentucky Law Enforcement Council, which actually certifies police officers in the state of Kentucky, and decertification. So anyone who separates for any reason from employment with LMPD gets reported to KLEC, and what we have to do is we have to explain to them whether or not they were under investigation, and if they were under investigation for something they would have or could have been terminated for, and then that body investigates and makes the determination of whether they'll be decertified permanently. So we report that to them. They will do their investigation and make a determination of whether or not that officer gets decertified for the rest of his life. So.
Can you give us an update on the Tasha White case and get a better picture of what happened?
So I can't go into too many details, exactly the specifics. However, this is a very complicated case. And kudos to these officers for making this case. I know there was a lot of criticism thrown at LMPD at the onset, but I will tell you that Tasha White's behavior placed her in the position she ultimately ended up in. And there are a lot of moving parts to this case, and I want to make sure that we can get far enough along in the prosecution before we give out some of those specific details and feel more comfortable about that.
On the juvenile crime, the numbers you were posting there were juvenile homicide victims, correct?
Yes.
What about, the perception is that juvenile offenders connected to homicides and or shootings for that matter are up. Are they?
Do we know the numbers on the offenders? I think it, yeah, we can get that exact information. I don't want to misspeak and tell you something wrong, but we know that juvenile offenders are a problem also. Like I just talked about, the system at large needs to be evaluated, and there are a lot of gaps in the system. Part of it is not having a facility here where we can house juveniles. Part of it is having to release juveniles on crimes that they should be incarcerated for. There are all kinds of confounds to this, but we do know that juveniles involved in crime, theft, violent crime, all of the above is a problem.
Dodge thefts. People have been wondering, are they able to kind of cover up their VIN numbers to try and avoid that? Is that a felony? How does that?
Yeah, so thefts of Dodges. So first of all, it's not just Dodges, but I would advise people to reach out to the manufacturers and the dealerships about this issue. It is illegal to cover up your VIN number, but we are having the problem that people are rekeying these based on the VIN number, and so the advice that I would give is reach out to your manufacturer, your dealership, about how to deal with that problem, and then the other thing is far more cars are stolen because people leave their keys in their car. They leave their key fobs in their cars, they leave guns in cars, they leave their cars unlocked. That is a far bigger issue than the key fob rekeying. And so we are trying to get to the bottom of the rekeying issue. I assume that we will eventually figure some of this out and make some arrests on it at some point. But we need to figure out exactly where in the system this became an issue.
You mentioned it's not just Dodges. Can you talk about what other cars are susceptible?
Well, I believe just about any key with a push button start that starts based off of a key fob would be susceptible to this.
What happens to stolen cars in this town? What are they used for? Where do they end up?
So the question was, what happens to stolen cars in this town, and where do they end up? A little bit of everything. Sometimes people go joyriding in them and then dump them. Sometimes they're used in other crimes, and then other times they are used just for scrap. And so it's a little bit of everything that happens with stolen cars.
Just to follow back on that question I had earlier, whenever you do find yourself in a situation like that, where there might be protesting and something like that, you as a driver, what do you suggest? Because we saw some dangerous situations of people trying to get out. What would you say to people?
So the question is, what should a driver do if they encounter something like that, right? Try to get out of that area. Try not to have a confrontation. I can't imagine how scary it would have been if you were just driving down Broadway and all of a sudden your car gets surrounded and people are kicking your car. We are very fortunate that some of those people were not killed or run over or injured in some way. And so citizens have to protect themselves. So remove yourself from the situation in the safest way possible.
Okay, so we're gonna do two more. Alexa.
Do you have any updates on the latest homicide that we burned yesterday on Shepherdsville Road? And if not, can you just reiterate the importance of people coming forward with any information or video to help you all solve it?
So I don't have much information on the homicide yesterday out in the 6th Division that I can put out right now. But as you said, it is extremely important that we get community cooperation. A lot of these homicides are solved based on community cooperation, whether it's video, whether it's eyewitnesses, being able to track cars down, track people down. Those are all very beneficial, and I think we do have some cooperation at this point from some of the community on that, and so we would continue to ask for more information on those cases.
Last one's gonna go to Spectrum.
Thank you. Chief, yesterday the mayor outlined changes to policies within LMPD concerning notifying ICE about certain detainees. Can you speak about LMPD's policies concerning immigration enforcement and what they look like today?
So the question is about the changes in the LMDC practices regarding ICE enforcement. Nothing has changed for LMPD. We don't have the authority. We don't seek the authority. That is not our job to enforce immigration. Our job is to keep people safe regardless of your immigration status. So we want to make sure that regardless of somebody's immigration status, they feel safe in calling the police when they need help. And so we will be there. When people are in trouble, I want everyone to trust that they can call the police regardless of what they look like, what God they pray to. Our Constitution protects everybody who's here in the United States, and we plan to do that too. So that's fine.
Is there any concern about overcrowding or understaffing?
At the jail?
In these jails, yes.
That's a very jail-specific question. I'm fortunate to not have to manage the jail. So, thank you.